Hello, it's me. I'm just doing a impromptu little tech demonstration that I found that I thought here would be interesting. Just to give us a little break from the last video, which was a very much a marathon of a demonstration, both for myself and probably for the audience, whoever actually bothered to watch that. Um, Now, I do want to note from the start here, this is first off, this is not a deck I've actually built myself. I've made a single modification to it from what I know. Maybe two? I'm not sure exactly. What I did was, this was being originally well, what I thought was supposed to be a legacy legal deck. Turned out not to be because it contained wastelands, which are not actually legal in Legacy. They're banned in Legacy, and I don't know if they're restricted in Vintage, but in any case, this wasn't supposed to be a Vintage deck. This was actually a deck that I was planning to build at some point. I might still. It's still very much in that doable range, but I wasn't. I actually went with a much cheaper, yeah, a much cheaper option when I went for to actually make a build. Suck my cock. Oh my god. Okay. Just ignore that. It's not as if the editing in this videos is getting any better, so we'll just pretend that didn't happen. Um, I went for a much cheaper deck that I actually, put some real work into myself when it came time to pick out a paper legacy deck, and I might show that off in a later video. I probably will actually, but I just wanted to start with this because it's a very, very obviously we only have four ofs of every single card, and there's not that much challenge to explain this deck, although I do want to note from the start here, from the top here, that I haven't actually gone through and refreshed memory entirely of what everything here in this deck is, so there might be a bit of stumbling, but you're used to that, aren't you? Okay, here we go. Now, as I said, this is a Legacy deck, and it's a Minotaur tribal deck, as we might see here from the first Minotaurs. And it's built around one card, which is the reason that I actually sought out this deck. This is a card that is showed off here. Obviously, without dispute, the most important card in this deck because it allows us to play all the spells here much quicker. Because, of course, Minotaur spells, one thing that they have, despite being very strong creatures, is they're usually typically fairly expensive spells. And this helps us get around that. This is the didgeridoo from Homelands, which I don't know if I've ever mentioned. Homelands is a set that I like a lot. It's generally regarded as as probably the weakest Magic set to date, and a lot of a lot of the reasons that is the case also actually tie into the reasons that I love this set. It was really, honestly, the most maligned factor about it is the fact that it was just released at the entirely wrong time. It was developed, I think it was like developed from late '93 to mid '94, just in terms of mechanics, and only was actually released a year later by the summer of '95, or maybe even later than that. It came out as the second set in the Ice Age block, which was going at the time, and it was obviously designed before the idea of blocks had ever been conceived in Magic design, and as a result it has no connection whatsoever to Ice Age, be it mechanically or through storyline or through art or anything really. So it just kind of felt awkward, and then the power level being, a set that was just sitting around for a year and a half or almost 2 years, the power level of these cards is much weaker than people were used to at that time, and as a result, there's a lot of spells that are just overcosted. There's some that have really ridiculous restrictions on their abilities. It's awkward to play, but really in isolation, it's much better than people give it credit for. And it has one thing that I really like, which is the actual art direction of the set, as we can see here. I don't know if there are some other Homelands cards in this deck, not too many, but one thing that I really like about this set, I don't know if I can do some sort of limited video at some point, I might be able to show that off better, but um, all the colors and all the different tribes and things here. First off, they were designed, top down. They were actually given a very modern design sensibility of having, different tribes and mechanics allocated to each color instead of just assigning them randomly as had been the standard up to that point. And every single one of these colors and tribes, etc., was given very limited number of artists that were commissioned to illustrate those cards, and as a result, there's a very distinct feeling to every single color of Magic in that set, just in terms of art direction. Anyway, that's not really relevant to this deck. Didgeridoo is an artifact for one colorless, which means that it's generally going to be our first turn play in, in ideal situations. I never really run this, never really go for a game unless I have a Didgeridoo in hand. And it just lets us, for 3 colorless, we can take a Minotaur card from our hand and just put it directly into play. Yeah, there's not really much else to explain to that, but I'll just show you now. The rest of this deck essentially just consists of, really huge Minotaurs that we would normally have to wait like 6 turns to play that we can get out in 3 just with, the Didgeridoo. And a bit of land destruction to keep our opponent from catching up to us because obviously once we have 3 mana, that's really all we need to do anything really for that turn, isn't it? Also a little enchantment that helps us speed things up and not rely on lands ourselves. That'll obviously allow us to destroy as many lands in the game as we want without suffering too many repercussions of our own. But I'll get to that later. What else? Let me just show off the Minotaurs first. There's 5 of them apparently, yes, 4 of each. And they're all just kind of they don't really have a lot of synergy in that sense. They're just kind of the best Minotaurs you can get at this. I don't know. I haven't looked at this deck in 3 years or something, but they were good. They're solid cards. I don't know if there's any better replacements for them, but Lure of Shatterskull Pass, which we saw at the beginning here. This is from Rise of the Eldrazi, which introduced the leveling up mechanic here, and all you really do is it comes into play in a certain state. You pay a level up cost, which in this case is 1 colorless, 1 red, and then you put a counter on it to show that it's 1 level higher than it previously was. In this case, for the first 5 level ups, this just becomes a 6/6, so it doubles its power and toughness. And after the 6th level, it gains the additional ability of dealing 6 damage to a target creature whenever it attacks. Here we have the Tolerant Champion from... Goodness. The Tolerant Champion from Visions. Usually costs 5, just as a 3/3, which you can get for 3 mana, obviously very cost effective. First strike, and whenever it becomes blocked, that creature loses first strike if it has it, so it's impossible to, deal first strike damage to this creature, which means that obviously if a first strike creature is blocked by another creature with first strike, they would just deal damage normally to each other. In this case, however, since that creature loses first strike, Tolerant Champion will always deal first strike damage to any blocking creature. Oh no, wait. Oh, I don't have any other Homelands cards. The Hurloons were introduced in Homelands as a name anyway. Or, hang on, what am I... Nope, okay. Sorry, I lied. I was thinking of something entirely else. I was thinking of the Anaba Minotaurs from Homelands, but they are not actually in this deck. I do have, oh yes. Okay, I'm just throwing it all out there and just fucking this is a fucking teaser video actually, it turns out. But I do remember actually now I have a quest deck that I built, just a Homelands quest, where all the cards are only, Homelands is the entire card pool. And I built a Minotaur tribal, a red-blue Minotaur tribal for that quest, so I might just show that off in a later video. Yeah, that's a fun thing I think we could do. Maybe I could just make this into a Minotaur special. No. Okay. Well, where was I? 3 mana, 2/3. And if the Shaman is put into a river from play, each player has to destroy a land they control. We'll get into the interaction with the spells, with the non-permanent spells in this deck later. Here's a very good example of how we can exploit the Didgeridoo. The Ordrune Veteran for 2 colorless, 1 red, and 1 white. Of course, there are no actual... This is a mono-red deck, as such. There are no white mana sources in this deck, but with a Didgeridoo, that doesn't matter. We can cast any Minotaur of any color. It doesn't matter what the casting cost is, as long as we have 3 colorless to pay. 3/1, and it has a variety of battalion ability, which means in this case, Gate Crash is his. So one of the original Ravnica sets, which I've heard are very well designed, but I never really played them in limited, so I can't say. And they're very board gamey, I would say. There's a lot of mechanics like these that just sometimes they're a bit too jangly to really. I mean, they're fun and limited, I bet, but in actual deck building, you always have to like kind of do weird things with them to make them really do anything significant outside of their pre-designed interaction fields. Anyway, whenever this and two other creatures attack, the Origin Veteran gains double strike until end of turn, which means that it deals, yeah, as you can see in the reminder text that I have memorized, it deals both first strike and regular damage. What are first strike abilities in this deck? And finally, yeah, speaking of, here for 7 mana, we can just get that out for less than half its actual cost. 6/2 Minotaur Aggressor with first strike and haste, very basic, but very simply and effective and elegant, I would say. What else? I don't have any. Yes, I have one non-basic land in this deck, which is just a Ghost Quarter, which is what I replaced the Wastelands with. This being a legacy legal replacement, pretty much does the exact same thing, just more expensively. Or with a drawback this time. Instead of, we can just still do the same Wasteland ability with sacrificing it to destroy a land. But when that happens, the controller can search their library for a basic land and put into play if they choose to do so. Otherwise, the only things left in here are, oh, crap. This Fuse card here, Boom and Bust from Plane Chase. Fuse cards are 2 spells on a single card, essentially, and you can choose to cast either one of them or both at the same time for their combined cost. Boom for 1 colorless, 1 red, lets us destroy target land we control and target land we don't control, so target land the opponent controls, essentially. And Bust is for 5 colorless, 1 red, just a destroy all land spell. Braze is essentially Boom, but different. And here is the centerpiece of this whole land destruction thing that we have going on. The Braid of Fire, which is an enchantment. Now, I want to mention, I don't know if I've ever described this concept, but many years ago, I don't know how long it's been since it's been taken out of the game at this point, but many years ago there was something called Mana Burn in Magic, and Mana Burn was just a very simple little side thing to, keep you from generating too many absurd amounts of mana at once without suffering for it, or, just mostly actually what usually happened was that people weren't careful and would suffer mana burn, because mana burn is a rule that states that whenever a phase ends, any unspent mana in a player's mana pool, they take 1 damage for each one of those mana, for every single point of mana left in their mana pool whenever a phase ends. So, I could accidentally tap 3 lands and only be able to pay 2 of those, spend 2 of those, 2 of the generate mana on something, and then take 1 damage as mana burn. Now, this is actually a great example of a card that has had its drawbacks removed by the fact that mana burn is no longer part of the rules. It's an enchantment for 1 colorless, 1 red from Cold Snap, the actual the set that replaced Homelands in the Ice Age block retroactively when it came out in 2006. It's an enchantment, as I already said, I think, and it has a cumulative upkeep that we just have to add 1 red mana to our mana pool during the upkeep. Now, obviously, first off, we can't cast spells during the upkeep at all. That's the first thing, which means that we can only use this mana to trigger abilities, which meant that, typically you would have to have some sort of thing on the field, either a creature or an enchantment or whatever, that you could pump this up with. You could just spend all the fucking red mana that this makes into that ability at the beginning of each upkeep without, either making a positive effect or a neutral effect. And obviously, eventually, with each additional turn, with this generating one more red mana than it did last turn, eventually you would have a very, very unwieldy amount of red mana floating around that would keep, being converted into mana burn whenever you wouldn't be able to spend it. And obviously you had to figure out something to do with the Braid of Fire before it got to that stage. Now, of course, since there's no mana burn, we can just have this keep growing, this Braid of Fire, and use that, all the mana from that, to activate the ability of the didgeridoo whenever we have it in play. And, if we actually leave this around laying around for enough turns, then we can have a real significant, near infinite, actually, amount of mana at our disposal each turn, which we can use, obviously, to play all our spells that actually matter, that is the creature spells, and then just keep, blasting all the lands in play away so that the opponent can't play anything. And that's really how this deck seals off its strategy. It just gets out these huge creatures at essentially no additional cost beyond the 3 colors mana that we can trigger at any time, and blocks the opponent from casting anything in response. That's pretty much it, really, isn't it? Have I missed out anything? I don't think so. Well, hopefully this was quick, as quick as I felt that it was, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, wow, this is going to be a short video. Only recorded one game because it was kind of stompy and pretty much... There's not a lot to this deck, I'm realizing, but, I know that you, the person in the title of this video, like to hear my voice in these videos, so here I am. And the problem is, because I played against this deck before to test it, and it's really nice. It's a nice little, green-red vampire tribal thing, kind of Innistrad theme. That's nice. But we don't get to see a lot of it, which is a shame. I'm way too lazy to play a second game, so this is all you get. Not much here to say. Got the didgeridoo out. Took a risk on 2 lands. Braid of Fire, which saved my ass, really. This could have been like a really frustrating, drawing, waiting game to draw something good, but it's not. And I could have actually probably played the ability in that turn already, just with the 1 mana from the Braid of Fire and 2 from the lands, but I was tired. Here we go. First play is going to be a Lord. I'm marking the upkeep to stop so that I can cast things during that turn, during that phase of the turn, rather. Yeah, and as I demonstrate here, this is where I try to activate the ability of the level up ability, but then I realized the level up only actually works at sorcery speed, so it's impossible to... You can't play sorceries during that phase either. Only during main phases, obviously. Just instants, abilities... Instants? Can I play instants during it? I don't know. There's no other deck I have that uses that, so I literally have no idea. But we're just gonna... level up the Lord this turn, and swing for 6. There's not a lot for me to say here. Yeah, we're playing for 3. We're just gonna get the veteran there, the 2 lords, to hopefully trigger that ability that he has when it's time to attack. And for the second didgeridoo play, I'm going to get the Minotaur Aggressor that I just drew, which kind of gets the opponent down to 5 life, and this is where I really have to stop because there's not much else to do. He got some cute bowls out from Eldritch Moon, which is a set that I never actually bothered with because I was so disappointed by Shadows of Innistrad that I just never played Eldritch Moon afterwards and been limited. I had drafted Shadows 3 times, and 3 times I was completely disappointed, so I said, fuck this, And fuck new Innistrad and yeah. Everything else here I'm doing is not really worth bothering with. I'm just gonna say goodbye. Thank you for watching. I hope this was enjoyable, even though it was short. I'll have better videos soon. Yes, definitely. If this laptop doesn't die in the meantime, goodbye.